In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the radiator on this Chevy Silverado 2500. Let's install this brand new TRQ radiator. To start, we have to remove this plastic cover here. It's just held on with a lot of push clips, so let's get all of those out so we can pull the cover off. This is what they look like. You can stick a trim tool in here, pop the center up, and then remove the rest of the push clip. Just go around and take out all of them. Now remove this. Now reach down with a pick on the lower radiator hose right here. You'll see a metal clip. If you pick it up from this side and then stick your pick underneath it, try not to let it go flying because you will need to reuse this. You can actually remove it from the hose fitting. All right, so there it is. Set that aside, and now you have to reach back down here and just twist and pull on the radiator hose to release the hose. There is unfortunately no drain plug on this, so getting the hose off is going to be the only way to drain this. And sometimes, because there's an O-ring in here, that O-ring gets stuck. I'm going to take a small pry bar, try to pry it just a little bit. You can also try to twist the hose. Sometimes that helps break that free. Try to wiggle it up and down while you pull. There we go. Let's just let that drain. Now let's disconnect the upper radiator hose. Typically you'd have the type of clamp that you can squeeze with pliers or a clamp tool, but for me someone has replaced this with a worm clamp. So I'm going to take an 8mm, unthread this partially, just enough to loosen it up. Once you loosen it up a little bit, pull it out of the way. Now you should be able to remove the upper radiator hose. At the top on each side you'll see a push clip. Take a trim tool, take out the center. Well, in this case the whole thing came out, but basically remove that push clip, one on each side. Halfway down on the fan shroud you'll see where the upper mounts onto the lower with two push clips, two on each side that is. Take that same trim tool, pop out the center, and remove the entire push clip. Of course do this on both and on both sides. Now pull on the fan shroud up and out. Get this out of here. There it is. Pop the plastic locking clip off. This just prevents the line from popping off, or the clip. And speaking of the clip, you'll need a pick for this one. Pick it up and out, kind of like we did on that lower radiator hose. It's the same style, just a lot smaller. Try not to lose these. There it is. Now we can pull on the line, give it a couple twists to break it free, and it should slide out of this fitting. Keep in mind, oil will come out of here. There we go. Sometimes it just needs a little tap. And of course now we have to do the same thing to the lower line, which is all the way down there. That one is covered in oil because the fitting has been leaking. So basically just do the same thing. There we go. There's a retainer holding these lines onto the lower fan shroud. Pull this off, or you can also open this retainer, but I feel that it's easier to just do this. With these lines up and out of the way, you should be able to push the fan shroud backwards out of your way so that we can get the radiator out. You really don't need much more space than this. You just need it to be able to push back so that we can tilt the radiator backwards and have space to remove it. Now on the other side you'll see a similar setup for lines. These are from the transmission cooler. So pop the plastic clip off, and then with a pick the locking tab out, or the locking clip I should say. On this side as well, it will leak when you pull these lines out. Just keep that in mind. There we go. And same on the bottom. And out it comes. Perfect. The radiator, or the cooler inside the radiator, will start draining now. Up top you'll have a small hose with a clamp on it. Pinch the clamp and pull it off. This will allow you to pull the hose off of the radiator. This goes to the overflow tank. You can take the pliers that you're using and very gently grab the hose, pinch it, and give it a couple twists. That should break it free. Now you can pull it off. There we go. There are two 13mm bolts holding this radiator on, one on each side. Remove them both. Now you can tilt the radiator back and pull it straight up and out. Be careful of your AC condenser that is behind it. More fluid will come out of the radiator at this point from the coolers on the side as well as the lower radiator hose. Lift it straight up. There we go. Sometimes the grommets on the bottom get a little stuck there. Make sure you clear those hoses or the lines. And there it is. At the bottom of the radiator, you'll see these rubber pads. They're little grommets that basically support the radiator. And if yours didn't stay on the vehicle side, most likely it's going to be on the radiator side. And to get it out, there's a little tab that you have to press down. Once you press that tab down, you'll be able to unlock this and pull it straight off. This right here is the tab I was talking about. You just need a little trim tool, pocket screwdriver, pry it out, and there it is. This I will install on the new radiator. The other one I'm just going to leave in the vehicle since it's already there. To install it, make sure you're putting it on the right end, of course, if you're just installing one and the other one's still in the vehicle, and make sure you don't put it upside down. Just press it on. At the top of the radiator, the bushings that had the through bolts going through them, we have to transfer to the new radiator, so pull straight out on these. That'll pop them out, and in the new radiator, you'll see a cutout for them. Just press them down, do the same to both. Now take your new radiator, slide it down into place. Be careful not to damage the fins on anything, and make sure all those lines don't get caught. That way you don't bend them or damage them. Watch out for the AC condenser, fan shroud, all of that. Make sure that on the bottom it falls into its grooves like that. Now press it up against the upper radiator support, and let's get the two 13mm bolts in just to hold this in place, otherwise it's going to want to keep falling forward. Get these lined up. Might have to move the radiator around a little bit just to get them started. I have my ratchet ready. I have my wrench ready. I'm going to tighten them up just a little bit. Now that they're both in, snug them up. There we go. 18 foot-pounds is the torque for these. Now grab the lower radiator hose and reinstall this clip, the locking clip. It's going to have to go just like this. It has three cutouts. The top cutout is going to be here, and on each side it'll have a little bend in the clip. Those lock in. Also inspect this O-ring. If you know that it was leaking prior, you can replace it, or if you think you need to replace it now, go ahead. Mine is fine, so I'm just going to leave it. Now grab the radiator hose and slide it on until it clicks. That's it right there. At this point, if you pull on it, it should not want to come out, so that's perfect right there. Now let's reinstall these lines on the passenger side of the radiator. These are for the transmission, and the new radiator comes with these clips already inserted, so all you have to do is press the line in until it locks in. That's it. That's locked in. You should not be able to pull it back out. And then to lock in the clip, you put these plastic caps on. Give it a spin. I like to do that just so I can ensure that it's on all the way around. And then we'll do the same to the upper one. Just like that. Make sure it's locked in, which it is, and cap it off. At the top, we had this overflow hose. Slide that on all the way, and then this hose clamp is locked into the open position, and I'll show you exactly how to unlock it if yours does that too. But first, we have to slide it over, of course. Oh, okay, so mine unlocked. Usually if it stays locked, you can stick a screwdriver in here, pry it apart, and the hook will basically just unhook and it'll spring open. However, make sure your fingers are out of the way when you do that because it will hurt if it hits you. Now let's put the lines back on the passenger side. Make sure they click, and of course, lock them in, just like that. And the one on the top, same thing. Now at the bottom here, if you just follow the lines, you'll see where the fan shroud needs to clip into the, well, the clip needs to go into the fan shroud, just like that. And now, on the side of the fan shroud, you'll see some tabs, one here and one on the very bottom. This is going to be the same on both left and right side, and all 4 of these tabs, 2 on each side, need to lock in to these hooks. So basically, once you're done, it should look like that on both sides, and this should not move. Now get the upper fan shroud back in. Be careful of your radiator fins when you do this. Same thing goes for this as for the lower. It has tabs on the side. Those need to line up with the hooks. Obviously, it also needs to line up with the lower fan shroud, just like that. Once it's in position, lock it in. Now install all 4 push clips, 2 on each side. And don't forget about the push clip up top. There we go. Now let's get the upper radiator hose back on, slide it all the way on, and then if you had the spring style clamp, obviously pinch it and put it back on here. I had this style, so I'm just going to take my 8mm, tighten it back up. Now the trick with these is you don't want to over tighten them, because if you do, they strip out, they don't hold pressure, and then not only will you have a leak, but also you're going to need to replace it again. So basically, once you snug it, just give it a little extra and stop there. And I like to put it right back where it was before on the hose, because the hose is most likely already molded to it, so it'll give it the best chance of sealing up that it has. So right here, it just got tight. I'm going to give it a little extra, and that's it. If I can't spin this hose at all or pull it, I'm good to go. Let's reinstall this top cover here. Just start on one side, work your way to the other, and install all of the push clips that hold this on. If some are missing, replace them. On the passenger side of your engine compartment, under the hood, you'll see the oil filler cap. Twist it counterclockwise until it stops, and then pull straight up on it. That's going to remove it, and then this will give you access to fill up your engine with oil. I'm going to choose to put a funnel in here so I don't make a mess. A 5W30 is what this engine requires. I'm going to remove my funnel now and cap off the oil filler. Turn this clockwise until it stops spinning. Right next to the oil filler cap, you'll see the yellow dipstick. This is for the engine oil. I'm going to take it out and wipe it off at the same time. This first removal is not going to be our reading. This is just going to clean it off so we can actually get a proper reading. Once it's cleaned off, stick it all the way back down in and then pull it out. Now is when we will take our reading. On the dipstick, you'll see several dots. This top one is going to be your full mark. If you are anywhere below this top one, add about 1/4 quart at a time until you get to the full mark. This is where you're going to want to be. This is going to represent 6 quarts of oil. So I'm spot on. That's good. I'm good to go. Slide the dipstick all the way back down in. Now, because we also had transmission lines disconnected, I'd like to check the fluid on that as well. On the passenger side of the engine, towards the firewall, you'll see this black dipstick here. I'm going to wipe it off. This is for the transmission fluid. I just don't want any dirt falling in the dipstick tube. Once I pull it out, flip this up. That'll unlock it. Pull it out. Now, the engine should be running when you do this. I don't have it running because it would be very loud, so you wouldn't be able to hear me much. But basically, you want to wipe it off as you pull it out, and you also want the transmission preferably at operating temperature. That would be between 160 and 200 degrees Fahrenheit on the transmission fluid temperature. So you want to pay attention to that, preferably with a scan tool of some sort. Once you're in that range and in park on a level surface with the engine running, dip the dipstick back down all the way, Pull it back out. Because my engine is not running, I will have a false reading. It will be way too high, as you can see right here. However, I will wipe it off just for demonstrational purposes, so I can show you that on the dipstick, you'll see some hash marks here. So this is the hot fill, and this is the cold fill. Yes, you can check it when it's cold, and that's usually around 80 or 90 degrees Fahrenheit on the transmission fluid temperature, but it is not the most accurate way to check it. You want to check it when it's hot, and you want to be between the range of the lower and the higher end here. Between the two, you'd want to just add about 1/4 of a quart at a time through the dipstick tube. That's how you fill it. But because we didn't lose much, honestly, I would not be concerned about it being too low. So if anything, if it was full, it should be about halfway down, if at all down, because we just really didn't lose much. But if you lost a lot, check it and make sure it's back to full and operates normally. Once you're done, you can stick the dipstick back into the tube all the way down and flip this over to lock it. And there you have it. Remove your coolant reservoir cap. And let's fill it up with a manufacturer specified coolant. At this point, I have filled up my overflow and it has stopped naturally bubbling up. So you would want to run the engine at this point, turn the heat on in the cabin just so you can feel that the heater core has filled up with coolant when that happens. You want to have the blower on low just so you don't pull too much heat from the engine, and then just let the engine run until it reaches operating temperature. Pay attention to that gauge to make sure it doesn't overheat, because if it does, it's most likely just an air bubble. Once you have reached operating temperature and you have noticed that the coolant stopped going down, obviously as this process is going on, the water pump will pump the coolant through and push the air out, so top it off as necessary. Once it's done bleeding, shut it down, let it cool down, top it off again if needed, and then put the cap back on. As you can see, the coolant is pretty much at the full line for me. So at this point, now that I've ran my engine and I know that it is bled, I'm going to cap it off, tighten this up all the way, and once it bottoms out, give it a quick snug, and you're good to go.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.